Before we get started, I just want to remind you to hit that like button, leave comments, and hit the subscribe button to get new content. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Kera Dangerous Talk. I've been waiting on this episode for a while. I got a special guest, somebody I actually met at Dr. Boyce Watkins All Black National Convention. It's the gift that just keeps on giving. Really met some nice people down there. But today, I want to introduce you to Dwight Swasey. He's a paramedic. Dwight, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Dwight, I could go along and go ahead and tell people the reason why I wanted you on the show today, but I would actually like you to tell us, why did you see the need to come on today and talk about the work of paramedics?
Well, to be honest with you, to be a paramedic, well, actually be a firefighter paramedic, it's a bit challenging, but I think the most important thing that I want to talk about is when we arrive on some of these scenes that when you have, someone in cardiac arrest, and the crazy part is no one's doing CPR, and CPR is very important, but I'm not sure if people, I believe they feel as if CPR isn't important, or just having some type of knowledge of how can I save my loved one, or how can I do something until EMS comes. Because if you don't do CPR and we get there, the brain starts to die within 4 to 6 minutes. So if no one's doing CPR, that means that brain death is occurring. National average for us to get on scene is around maybe like 8 9 minutes. Brain death is already set in. So I think the importance of learning CPR and just being aware of things that you should know, so you can keep your family safe.
Absolutely. And what I'm hearing from you is that people just need to be more aware, become more knowledgeable of actually what emergency service providers do. So, Dwight, you have a very stressful, tough job, but I just want to start at the beginning so we can give people some insight into what you guys do. I think the simplest thing or the simplest place to start is, what is the difference between EMT and a paramedic?
Okay, well, you know what? A lot of people get us confused with that. Well, EMT is they provide basic life support. So basically, they support the paramedic. We provide advanced life support. So EMT training is 6 months, and to be a paramedic, that's a year. And I mean, the differences and the things we can do is just tremendous. So there's a huge difference. So sometimes we arrive on scene and people are like, "Hey, there's the EMTs that are coming," but it's I don't take it as as an insult, but it is what it is.
Okay, so how would I be able to recognize an EMT from a paramedic if emergency situations is going on and you said sometimes people think you are the EMT? Are there anything on your clothing that will kind of let me know, hey, that's the paramedic, that's the EMT? What should we be looking for?
Well, normally, sometimes when we're out, you'll see the difference on the uniform. It'll say EMT or paramedic. But 9 times out of 10, we have a lot of paramedics on scene. So 9 times out of 10, you're gonna have more paramedics than EMT. So it's safe to say, just say, hey, here come the paramedics, and we greatly appreciate that.
Now, it's something funny. Anytime somebody's in traffic or you hanging out with your friends,
Mhm.
everybody has a story about being annoyed when they see the ambulance coming through. But I tell people you have to remember they're saving lives, and a lot of people say, "Well, I think they're just going to get something to eat," or there's no real emergency. They do the same thing with cops. You guys make do you how do you guys feel about that when you hear people say things like and joke around about you guys driving and have your lights on?
Well, to be honest with you, it really doesn't bother me. But I think the big thing is that when we're driving, people are clueless. They jam on their brakes. They sometimes they don't want to get out of the way, and it's crazy. Like sometimes we be on scenes and we have to block traffic or block someone who's parked in, and they're adamant, "Hey, I gotta leave. I gotta leave. Can you move out of the way?" It's like, sir, we have an emergency to deal with. Once we finish with the emergency, we'll move the units. But people feel as if their situation is more important than the emergency that's actually taking place, which is bad, very bad, very bad.
And I was actually going to get into that later, but since you brought it up, let's just go ahead and dive in it. I hear so many stories from paramedics, and you see stories on the news where people have really gotten crazy with emergency service personnel when you guys are out there trying to help and save a life. And like you said, you may be accidentally blocking someone in because you're making those moves to limit the amount of time it takes to get out and be able to save the person's life. what
Hmm.
what would you just like to tell people about how when they intervene with your work, how that really makes you guys lose critical time?
Well, the way I see it is, if they would put themselves in the person who's having that emergency situation, I'm quite sure they'll feel a lot different. But a lot of people, they don't care about others; they just care about themselves. And it seems like that's the world that we're living in nowadays. But I can definitely tell you that if it was your emergency, you would want us getting there, immediately, and not having to deal with someone saying, "Hey, hey, move your rig! I gotta go! I gotta go!" Because it's not fair to that individual who's in that dire need of our assistance. So like I say, I would echo this to the world. Let us do our job, and eventually we'll come and move our units, and you can, go about your way. That's technically not an emergency. So let us deal with this emergency, and we'll move our units momentarily.
So let's go back to just the vehicle you're riding in, okay?
Mhm.
And we say, I get from the ambulance, we have the EMT, we have the paramedic, we have the person driving the ambulance. But is it, let me know the different people who are actually in the ambulance, just in case I have it wrong. Is the person who driving the car only able to do certain things compared to the people that's in the back? I'm totally
Mhm.
ignorant of this.
All
So just
right.
break it down for.
All right, so I'll go break it down for you. So we have what we call an engine company, and we have a rescue. An engine company has, the lieutenant, the engineer. The engineer is the person who drives, and normally we have two firefighters in the back. Now, every person on that unit has a job function, so everybody has a role. So, as far as the rescue, 9 times out of 10, you have an EMT driver, and then you have the paramedic. So everyone has a role when it comes to EMS per se, especially on fires. Everyone has a role, but there is a difference between, like I said, we call the fire truck the engine, and we call the ambulance, like you say, we call it the rescue. So big difference, but 9 times out of 10, when you call 911, you're gonna get the engine and the rescue. And a lot of people be like, why are there so many people here? Man, when you call 911, we roll deep, as we say. So we want to make sure we can cover all bases and have enough personnel on scene to mitigate any situation that occurs.
Is there any equipment that you just have to have for every call that you get that you guys keep with you?
Yeah, so what we do in the rescue, we load all the equipment on the stretcher. So every call, you want to roll with everything because let's say, for example, we leave the drug box because we think it's a minor BLS call. Sometimes when people dial 911, they tell you one thing, but when you arrive on scene, it's totally different. So you can't have those blinders on. So we bring everything. We bring the monitor, which is the Life Pack 15. We bring the drug box, the airway bag. We bring everything that we need to handle that situation at that given point in time, whether if it's BLS or ALS, we come with everything.
Well, we obviously know that paramedics are first responders, as we know that word, first responder. But what are the limitations that paramedics have? Because obviously, you guys are trained and you go through your education process, but it's not the hospital. You're getting these people to the hospital. So, what limitations do paramedics have as far as what you guys can do on the scene?
Well, I would say we have a wide range of things we can do, but let's say, for example, we want to do something that's out of our protocols. We can call a medical director and see if he'll give us permission to do whatever it is that we think we need to do. But like I said, we have a wide range of things that we can do. We start IVs, we innovate, we do needle decompression. And I believe that's what makes our job so exciting because we can do a lot to stabilize the patient so that we can get them to the ER so that the doctors can do their magic. But like I said, we can do a lot of things. And if there's something that we can't do because out of our protocols, we can always call, our medical director.
How important is the working relationship between paramedics and the local cops in that area? Because I've seen cases where, if you guys aren't on the same accord, sometimes that can actually make those moments to save a life even more critical. So tell us about that relationship between you guys and the police. The
Well, to be
popo.
the popo, the popo. So that's very few and far between that we have, some type of disagreement. But what I would say is that sometimes we do have some law enforcement officers that we have some patients that are handcuffed. So technically, if you're handcuffed, there's certain things that we can't do that we need to do, and sometimes the officers are a little hesitant on moving the cuffs to the front and things of that nature. But like I said, that's very few and far between. But for the most part, we have a good working relationship, and I haven't had any issues in the 21 years that I've been, doing this job.
That's excellent. Now you got the cops who can help you and assist, but we touched on it just a little bit, but we know that people can sometimes intervene because it's an emergency situation. You may have family on the scene that are just going nuts because they don't realize, what's going on. They may be afraid for their loved one or, whatever the case may be. How often or not do you have those situations where people try to step in and kind of keep you from what you're trying to get done?
Well, it all depends on the area in which you work. Now, some areas you don't have that problem, but other areas you have people that want to intervene. But I mean, if we do have a problem, we will call SO to say, hey, we need some crowd control. But like I say, it all depends on the areas you work in. But some people do intervene. Sometimes we need their help because sometimes we arrive on scene and the citizens are doing CPR. The citizens are, holding direct pressure on the injury. And sometimes we're a little limited on resources because let's say, for example, if I arrive on scene first, I'm a single unit. So I'm a captain. I'm a captain paramedic. So it's just me and that unit. And if I arrive on scene, there's only certain things I can do. So if the citizen is already there, I'm going to have him help me until, further, resources come. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But for the most part, I experience the good parts of citizens helping and, being a part of the team, so to speak.
Well, you just said you're a captain paramedic, so should I salute you? What is being a captain paramedic all about?
All right, so my role. Let me break it down for you. So you
Break
have
it down,
firefighter.
please.
I won't break it down for you. So you have a firefighter. You have engineer. From engineer, you have lieutenant. Then you have captain, and then you have battalion chief. Then you have assistant chief. Then you have deputy chief, and then you have the fire chief. So I got promoted a couple times, and I made the rank of captain. My job duties is I'm scene safety. So let's say, for example, there's a fire scene. I'm the safety guy on scene, making sure everybody's doing everything safe. On EMS scenes, I'm still making sure everyone's doing safe. I do Q and A's, so I a QA report. So my job is kind of more administrative, but I respond to like extrications, like I said, house fires, big events and things of that nature. But overall, I love the job. Been doing it for 21 years, and promoted up the ranks. I'm not gonna say it wasn't quick, but I'm comfortable where I am. So a lot of people ask me, Dwight, are you going to become a battalion chief? I'm like, no, I got a few years left, but I think I'm just going to ride it out as being a captain.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all that service you put in 21 years. That's a grown person right there. That's amazing. If you didn't feel old now, you're welcome.
Ain't no pressure. I'm good. Thank you, though. Ain't that nothing but a number.
That's right. You're nothing but a number. Now, it's funny because, well, I guess it's not funny. It won't be funny to you, but just like police officers,
Hmm,
being a paramedic is a very stressful job. And when you look up and do your research,
hmm,
it actually says that because of the age people become paramedics, because of the different shifts you have to work, the
hmm,
dangers of the job, and also something called EMS burnout. And check this out, there's
hmm.
something called ambulance induced divorce syndrome, you
Oh,
know, and this is something that police officers go deal with. Very stressful job, Dwight. Just
hmm.
give us a little insight into the stressors of the job and just how much work you have to put in.
All right. Well, I'm going to say this job isn't for everyone. Because the things we see, the things we deal with, it's not normal, and we sometimes find a way to normalize it. And it may sound kind of cruel, but after certain calls, we make jokes about the calls, but that's our way of debriefing. Because if not, if we keep that stuff bottled inside, you can suffer from depression, start drinking and things of that nature. So we kind of have, I'm not going to say our humor is a little different, but our humor is so that we can be able to cope and still move forward. Because if not, we won't be able to survive in this job. We'll not be able to survive.
You guys get calls all
Mm-mm,
the time throughout the night, some more serious than others.
mm-mm.
But tell us how important it is for a person to give the most details possible on that call so you guys can be the most prepared. And when you arrive to the scene, for the people who are there to give you the best details possible.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm gonna say that's kind of hard to do because a lot of people don't understand. I'm not gonna say they don't understand a true emergency, but I'm gonna give you a prime example. So sometimes we arrive on scene. Let me back up. So sometimes we get a call saying that we have a patient that's in cardiac arrest, CPR is in progress, and when we get there, the first thing we do is check for a pulse. And the person has a pulse and they're doing CPR. So a lot of people they don't understand that hey, if someone's unresponsive, that doesn't mean you need to do CPR. That means you need to check to see if they have a pulse. If they have a pulse, CPR doesn't need to be done. But a lot of people feel as if, hey, this guy's unresponsive or he looks like he's dead. We need to jump on his chest and start doing CPR, which that's not the case. But like I said, anytime we get dispatched to a call, we never get tunnel vision directly on what dispatch says because a lot of the times we arrive on scene, we get information from dispatch saying that it's going to be this and it's something totally different. So you can't have those blinders on because if you do, you're going to set yourself up for failure, unfortunately.
Now you've been on the job for over 20 years, but can you actually remember some of the first times you went out you have to start as an EMT before you can become a paramedic. I think I have that fact
Yep,
correct.
yep,
So,
mm-hmm.
so do you
Yep.
remember any of those first calls when you first started working and how you felt?
I remember I got hired in 2000. Well, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I got hired in 2000. Yeah, in 2000, and I was an EMT, and I worked alongside a great paramedic, and you know, to be honest with you, seeing how he interacted with the patient and seeing how he was able to do more things than I could do, it kind of made me say, man, maybe I need to become a paramedic because now, just instead of doing this, I can do, 10 other things that I can possibly do to help this patient. So, I mean, that kind of helped me become a paramedic. But as far as some of the good times, so we have good times, we have bad times, obviously. So, it's kind of crazy, but we do get calls where they say, "Hey, can you come take a cat out of a tree?" We did that before, which that's something that's kind of unheard of. You just think that's TV, but no, we go through that. Um,
I heard firefighters won't respond to those calls anymore, so they got you guys on the cats now.
no, so all right, so here's the deal, right? So we respond to almost anything. If you dial 911, we're there. And here where I work, EMS and fire are all as one. Like New York, it's separate. You have fire, you have EMS. Here, it's all in one. Fire and EMS, we roll together. Okay, everybody's dual certified. You have to be a firefighter. You have to be some type of EMS personnel, which is bare minimum. You have to be an EMT or paramedic.
Wait a minute. So when you say firefighter, I'm thinking there's a whole nother group of paramedics who go out with the firefighters. You're actually saying you have to be a firefighter as well?
Yeah. So me, I'm a firefighter paramedic, and my rank is captain.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So just like I say, New York, you just have EMTs and paramedics on the rescue, and then you have just the firefighters on the engine, ladder trucks. But here, we're firefighters and EMS, so we do both.
So Monday you may be a fighter, Tuesday you a paramedic. That's how it goes, or how does that
No,
work?
no. Well, so here's the deal. We run about maybe 80% EMS calls, and the other 20 is fire. So, irregardless, if we go to an EMS call or fire, we're prepared because we can do both. We're firefighters and we're either EMT or paramedic, and you have to be that here in Florida.
Wow. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I just know it's a lot of clothing for put on as a firefighter. I'm like, do y'all switch outfits right at the scene? No, I got it. I'm a firefighter today. No, I'm a
No, we carry all our bunker gear inside of the unit with us. So, like I said, we prepare for everything.
Yeah, I did
Definitely.
a conversation with a police officer once,
Mm.
and we talked about the stigma of being a black police. And he said, sometimes even with his own self, he feels some type of way about wearing that uniform and being black and having to go into black neighborhoods and see the black people killing each other,
Mm.
but you're the police that everybody hates. Is there any stigma that comes along with being a black paramedic?
Um, I'm gonna say the only issue I had years ago was this was years ago. Went to a call and I was only the black I was only a black person on scene as far as fire department wise, and it was an older gentleman and he did not want me to assess him, and I
Wow.
was the only paramedic. So since it was a BLS call, I told him no problem, sir. I'll have the EMT assess him, and I just just oversaw everything. And like I say, he didn't want me touching him. He didn't want me to assess him for whatever reason. I don't know, but I was cool with it because at the end of the day, as long as he got the help that was needed, I was good with that.
So I know you must go out to a call because I just saw a story of a paramedic who was put under charges for, they claimed that she didn't answer a call. She said she didn't get the call, but let's say you answer the call like you did, but then the person denies medical attention.
Mm.
Is that okay? Is that, I mean, obviously you can say no if the person says, look, you're black, I don't want you touching me or whatever. Can they say that and you can be okay with saying I didn't help that person, or you're supposed to still go through and help them? How does that
Yep.
work?
So I'm still gonna go through every measure to try to help the individual, even if I got to call another unit to the scene. That's someone that he would want to assess, and whether it be a female or whatever the case may be. I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get that patient taken care of because at the end of the day, it's not about me; it's about the patient. You know, I'm here for them. So if they don't want me to help them, I'm gonna call the resources that can help them.
There takes a lot do the work that you do. Just tell us about just some of the training and education you have to do for maybe anybody who's watching right now who says, I like to help people. This is a
Mhm.
career that I'm interested in. What tips or where would you start them off looking if they want to look into this career?
All right. So first thing I would recommend is you go to your local college and you definitely want to enroll in EMT school because, like I say, bare minimum you have to be an EMT. Once you complete EMT school, I will go to the fire academy and do that. And once you become a firefighter EMT, now you can start applying yourself to different departments. But the only problem is now a lot of departments are just hiring firefighter paramedics. So once you get your EMT, your fire, you need to go back to school to get your medics because now that opens up a lot of doors for you to get hired. And one of the cool things we have at my department is it's called other departments have it too. It's called non-certified program, which means that they would take a regular Joe Blow, the citizen off the street, put them through fire, put them through EMT school, and pay them at the same time. So you can't beat that. I wish I had the opportunity when I was applying, but I didn't. But that's a great opportunity, and that's called the the non-certified program, which is excellent. It's definitely excellent.
Now we could talk about qualifications and education and all that. But for me, when I'm dealing with people in the medical field, I want to know that there's somebody that I can trust and somebody who has my best interest at heart
Mhm.
during this emergency situation. But there are plenty of stories out there. You can Google them, you can YouTube them, where there have been people who have been racist or found out to be white supremacists later on. And basically the question that I'm getting to is,
Mhm.
what type of character does it take to be a paramedic? We know some bad apples can get in any field, but just you being a captain and having that experience, give me a person who would be a good candidate. What kind of character should they have as a person?
I mean, definitely got to be a trustworthy person because we're around, these people's personal items. Sometimes, we send them off in a rescue and we have to go back and secure their home and things of that nature. So, I mean, you got to be a very trustworthy person. I mean, you got to have some good ethics because if not, you'll kind of, fall off to the wayside. But I mean, overall, you just got to be a person who's willing to help because if not, sometimes you may, like I said, fall to the wayside and do things that you're not supposed to do. Like, okay, you go back in the house, you see money on the table, man, there's nobody looking, and let me put this in my pocket. That's not the right thing to do because once again, we're there for the patient, and if you keep that in mind, you should do everything right, and you shouldn't fall to that wayside to the point where you want to, start um, doing things that you're not supposed to do. So be be a good stand-up person. Once again, tell the truth. The truth will always set you free, in my opinion. So if you follow those things, I think you'll be a very successful individual in this field.
Excellent. Now, at what point are does a paramedic call in the sky team? And I'm calling it the sky team because I don't know you could correct me. But what time do we airlift people and those paramedics come into play?
Mhm. All right, so it all depends. So let's say, for example, if we have a trauma patient and we need to get them to the hospital ASAP. So instead of driving them, we're going to fly them because we have that critical hour. So on 9 times 10, a lot of extrication calls because we got to extricate the patient, which means, get the car from around the patient. Sometimes that takes 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes to get them out. And then if you have another 30 minutes drive to the trauma center, that's critical time that we don't we need to value. So we need to get them there as soon as possible. So we're going to fly them out. Also, depending on the location of where you are. So we call it out in the boonies, so to speak. So if you have a stroke patient or any critical patient that needs to get to the hospital ASAP, we're gonna call the bird, and get them there
The bird.
immediately. Yeah, the bird, the helicopter.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay, if you can call it the bird, I think I can call it the sky team.
yeah, you call it Sky Team. There it is.
Is there better terminology for what are they called? The people.
No, so we used to have a helicopter,
Mm.
but for whatever reason we got rid of that. So the hospital have helicopters that has a paramedic and a nurse on board, and of course the pilot to fly the helicopter.
Now, what is it that you wish that people knew about your job? Because it seems to me that paramedics are often forgot about. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but you guys just don't get as much acknowledgement, I feel, as some of the other emergency service people. What are your thoughts?
I think that people don't. I think until people experience their own emergency and value, us coming to help them, they're not gonna understand it. They're not gonna understand it. But I'm cool with that because at the end of the day, it fulfills me to go to work and help people. I mean, that's what I enjoy doing. So, irregardless what people think, it kind of doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, if people will put themselves in the people who have that emergency shoes, you would definitely appreciate that helping, that smiling face is coming to make your day a lot better than what it was 20, 15 minutes ago, or whatever the case may be. So until they put themselves in that person's shoes, I don't think they're gonna understand, to be honest with
You know what? I have a song on my last album, Kera Dangerous 2, Pick It Up, is out everywhere, called
you.
State of
Okay.
Emergency. And I said the same thing. I don't remember my exact line right now, but I
Mhm.
did say that people don't understand the emergency unless it's happening to them. There's no
Exactly.
urgency.
That's
That's what I
facts.
said, unless it's them. I'm a genius. Move out the way, Kanye. I'm a freaking genius. So look, I got a little game for you, and
Uh-huh.
my scenarios may suck, but hey, I'm not in the medical field. But
All right.
I came up with a couple of scenarios. Some are more detailed than others,
Mhm.
and I just want you to tell me, just off of the call that I put in to 911, how would you start preparing yourself for when you got there to the emergency situation?
Okay.
Okay. Scenario number one, I don't know where these people are, but it's a young man
Mhm.
who's unconscious. We don't know his age. We just know that he's a young man, and all we know that he is unconscious. That's all the information you have. Where do you start with that, Mr. Swasey?
All right. So we'll arrive on scene. First thing we're gonna try to find out, is there any bystanders? Who was the person that made that 911 call? We're going to try to get with them to see if they can point us in that right direction. One of the cool things we utilize, we call them OCSO for, is the helicopter, because they have what is it called? I forgot what it's called, but they can get an aerial view of the area, and they can use their infrared to see if they have any heat signatures. So the person in the woods or whatever the case may be, we can use their resources. Now, without somebody kind of pointing us in the right direction, we can kind of try to assume, but
Mhm.
assuming can only take you but so far. But if there's any bystanders around, we definitely want to get with bystanders. We want to get with that call taker to see if they can give us some information and point us in the right direction. But without that call taker, without bystanders on scene, we can canvas the area. We even have ticks, which is a thermal imaging camera. We can scan the areas to see if we find something. And we'll do a thorough search of that area that we assume the person may be in. And if not, we'll call it a good intent call because we tried our best.
Okay, I was gonna say ant, but no, that's perfect. That's very perfect. It's better than what I could have gave. Okay, second scenario: a
Right.
man is stabbed in the arm. 40 years old. You arrive to the scene, and police officer has actually placed a tourniquet on the patient's arm. He just happened to have one in his car. So it's a man stabbed in the arm, around 40 years old. You
Mhm.
arrive to the scene, and a police officer has already placed a tourniquet on his arm. Where do you go next?
I mean, well, I thought you were going to say a man was stabbed on scene and SO wasn't there because I was going to say we don't go on the scene unless the scene is secure. But since the scene is secure because SO was there, he basically, he did our job for us. We will put a tourniquet on. I mean, if there's some bleeding still, I mean, we can add another tourniquet. We will apply some direct pressure. We'll bandage it, and we definitely would recommend that person to go down to the ER to get further evaluated because depending on how deep the wound is, he may need stitches, may not, but it's always best to err on the side of caution, and we always advise the person to go down to the hospital and get checked out.
Now I know that every cut, like you said, every bleed isn't
Mm,
the same.
mhm.
So arterial bleed, did I say that correctly?
Oh, you said
Arterial.
it right. Yeah, that's right. That's the
Arterial.
worst. That's the worst kind.
That's the worst kind of
Hmm.
bleed. Now, what makes that the worst? And if you could just explain what would you do as a paramedic if you arrive on the scene and you have arterial bleed?
Well, basically, arterial bleed that's one of your bigger vessels, and it has a lot of pressure. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to use that tourniquet. And just remember, for everybody's sake, tourniquets only work on extremities. What are extremities? Arms and legs. So they have a puncture wound to the chest and there's gaping blood. You can't put a tourniquet around somebody's torso and things of that nature. But we're going to use that tourniquet. Okay, immediately use that tourniquet and put it on and keep winching it down until the bleeding stops. And then what we're going to do at that point is cover that injured area with some trauma dressing and some gauze and start IVs and things of that nature. Put them on a monitor, get some vitals, and we definitely going to take that person down to the hospital because arterial bleed you can bleed out in seconds. You can bleed out in seconds. So we have to be aggressive when we see those type of injuries.
Nice. One more scenario.
All right.
You get a call
Uh-huh.
that a young girl was hit by a car on her bicycle. Terrible. I hate to hear children on their bike being hit by a car. What happens when you arrive to the scene?
All right. So depending on the information we get, we may put air care, which is the bird on standby. Just like I say, it's always best to be on the air on the side of caution.
Oh,
It
I'm
is.
sorry. I'm so
No, you good. So one of the things we're gonna do is automatically hold C-spine. So remember, like I said, we roll deep. It's a lot of us, so we're gonna have somebody hold C-spine, which means holding that person's head still. Because if they got hit by a car, they could have some spinal injuries and things of that nature, and we want to minimize that. So remember, the more you move your neck, the more you can aggravate that injury. So we're gonna hold C-spine. We're gonna have the paramedic do a head-to-toe assessment because we're looking for any obvious trauma. If we see an obvious trauma from our head to toe assessment, we're going to take care of that. Once we get the patient stabilized, we call it packaging the patient. We're going to put a C collar on the patient. We're going to put the patient on a long backboard, which is it's kind of uncomfortable, but it's the best way to transport that patient for the possible injuries that they may have. And once we put them on that backboard, we're going to get them on that stretcher, depending on if it's a trauma alert or if it's just I'm not gonna say we call it like a medical green, trauma yellow, trauma red, depending on the severity of the call. Either we're gonna call or we're gonna have that bird come, or we're gonna take the patient back ground.
whoa. Okay, that's the last one. Good job there. We feel in safe hands having you in the neighborhood.
There it is. I appreciate you.
Dwight, another point we need to kind of give people some awareness about is fire safety. Now, myself included, I have actually been through some fire safety courses. You know, I was able to light the fire, which was pretty cool. I don't know what it is about fire. It's like, give me the match. I want to burn it down. Let's do it. And use the extinguisher. I was able to do that. Pretty cool stuff. But what is it that most people are missing when it comes to understanding fire safety?
All right, so I'm gonna keep it real simple. So when it comes to fire safety, for one, let's say for example that you have a kitchen fire, and we call it a grease fire, pot on the stove. 9 times out of 10, if you have a grease fire, a lot of people want to go grabbing water or something liquid to try to put that fire out. And what they fail to realize is that that's going to make the fire worse. So if
Oh my
anything, you want to
God.
go
It's still
flour.
country people using water.
Yeah, if they still using water. So
They
you want
don't
to use
know to use
flour.
baking soda.
A lot of people don't think of that stuff. So I mean, baking soda, anything that's not liquid, so to speak, to try to smother that fire. Because once again, you pour water on that, you're just gonna make the fire spread. It's gonna be very bad. It's gonna be a bad day for that individual.
Well, what else you got for us? Because people do some silly things. I'm over cautious about fires.
Mhm.
I mean, I see people do silly things like put leave candles lit and leave the house. I don't do that. I'm too cautious. My name should be Kera Cautious, not dangerous, because I'm like, I'm going, uh, don't leave that on. Like,
Uh,
don't put that cloth so close to the lamp.
mhm.
And one other thing I did one day is I had an extension cable and
Mhm.
a piece of cover went over by mistake, and I saw some sparks. I'm like, don't put cables underneath covers. That's a fire hazard. Come on, people.
Yeah, see, once again, a lot of people don't think about that. Of course, I think about it more so than not. So it's almost like I be talking to my friends and I hear like a beeping noise in the background. I'm like, hey, bro, you need to change your smoke detector batteries. Which you should do it every time the time changes. Twice a year, change that smoke detector battery. Another thing that I also recommend people do is get a fire extinguisher, ABC fire extinguisher, because that can handle almost anything in your household. And then definitely learn how to use that fire extinguisher. There's an acronym that we use, which is called PASS, which is pull that little pin, aim the nozzle, squeeze, and then sweep. Okay. Now, another thing people need to realize is that fire extinguishers, fire extinguishers.
I took the class. I'm saying that's how you're supposed to do it.
I appreciate that demonstration.
You welcome.
A lot of times, people don't realize that fire extinguishers are not for big fires. They're for little fires, little trash can fires. If that fire is too big, that fire extinguisher is not going to work. So don't even try to use it. Get out of the house. Run to a safe haven. And to speak about safe havens, as a family, you guys should get together and come up with an emergency escape plan. So saying that, hey, if this were to happen, we need to all leave the house and meet in front of the mango tree or the ackee tree or whatever designated spot that you guys, designate for that. Everybody needs to meet here so we can have a head count to ensure everyone's out of the house safe.
Yes, and don't cook when you know that you're sleepy, because that smoke would feel just like a warm blanket and
Hmm.
keep you asleep, right, Dwight?
Yes, ma'am. And also, don't smoke and fall asleep because that
Yes.
light, that lit cigarette can fall on that couch. And next thing you know, you got an inferno.
And I think I'm right in saying this. And don't forget, people think they can jump out the windows, but the windows can in turn be very hot. So that's correct, right? I'm
I
right,
mean,
right?
I mean, if that's the only way you got to get out of the house, I mean, that's the only way you got to get out of the house.
No, I'm saying I thought there was a case where like sometimes the windows can get hot where you may need something to open the window. Am I wrong in that? Or
Yeah.
is that just the door that can get hot?
All right. So normally, it's the doors that. So let's say, for example, you have a room in content. So something in the room's on fire. The problem is people run out of the room and leave the door open. Remember, when you leave the door open, you're giving that fire a path, and by closing the door, you cut off that oxygen supply. So eventually, that fire will just be contained in that room, and eventually, it will go out. So closing the door can mean the difference between that fire spreading throughout the house or just being contained in that one area. Something that a lot of people don't realize.
So you telling me if the fire is in the living room and I close the doors, it'll just stay in the living room?
No, so let's say it's in a bedroom. So it has to be in a room that you can close the door to kind of stop that flow. air going to that room or whatever the case may be. But living room, nah, you can't stop that. But you can if you run out the front door, close that front door because if not, you're feeding the fire. You're feeding the fire with oxygen.
Don't feed the fire, guys.
Yep, don't feed it. Starve it. That's what you want to do. Starve it.
Well, Mr. Swayze, cool name by the way, but
Thank
I
you.
just want to let you know you gave us some great tips and gave us some good information. Really, I was ignorant on a lot of things about EMS and
Mhm.
what you guys do. And I just want to give you one last chance to really get your feelings out there about people who criticize the ambulance coming through traffic. I mean, it sounds funny, but what is the correct way to act in traffic when we see you guys and your lights are on and you're trying to get through?
Well, first and foremost, I'm gonna say don't just slam on your brakes. We get that all the time. What you want to do is pull to the right. But I think a lot of times with these newer cars, they're so well insulated, people don't hear us until we ride up on them. And once again, don't just slam on your brakes. Pull to the right, pull to the left. Um, you have some people that even try to speed up, and like I said, that's not safe because that's just a bad it's just bad altogether. So once again, pull to the right, pull to the left. Don't slam on your brake because that just makes it worse because we can run into the back of you, and now we have an incident there, and we're not going to be able to go to the original incident. So we don't want that. So try to just be aware of your surroundings. That's the only thing I can say. Be aware of your surroundings.
Yes, sir. Well, again, thank you so much. Any final thoughts here?
What I would say is that everyone needs to take EMS serious. Everyone should learn CPR. Everyone should learn fire safety because it's not if it's when, and when it happens, you want to be prepared. So what I tell people is don't be reactive. Oh, correction, I said that backwards, didn't I? So you want to don't be reactive, be proactive. I said it right. So once again, learn what you need to learn to keep you and your family safe because you never know when you're gonna need those skills.
How many chest pumps is it now? Because it seems like every year they change the number of pumps to the chest that you have to give to to bring somebody back.
Every 5 years, AHA changed their guidelines. So for one person, adult CPR is still 30 to 2. But here's that misconception that's out there in the world. A lot of people say, well, hey, I hear you don't have to give breaths anymore. Only time that you don't have to give breaths if you don't have a breathing barrier, okay, which is a pocket mask or if you're doing two-person CPR, BVM. But if you don't have a breathing barrier and you don't know that individual, we call that doing hands-only CPR, which is just compressions only. Because once again, a lot of people say, well, if we're just doing compressions and not giving breaths, how's that helping the patient? We still have oxygen in our blood. We're going to circulate that oxygen on out, but at least we're buying that person some time. So when EMS gets there, we have something to work with. Because remember, like I said, the brain starts to die within 4 to 6 minutes. So at least you're doing something until EMS gets there.
And I think I'm right in saying you check the mouth first to make you tilt the head over if anything's in the mouth, it'll maybe come out, or you can see if anything is lodged in there.
So normally we do that if a person is choking. So if they're choking, they go unresponsive. Before you get the two breaths, you want to open the airway, look inside. If you see something, you take it out, and give your two breaths and go from there.
So I was halfway wrong, is what you're.
Yeah, I ain't gonna say it like that, but yeah, just a wee bit, just a wee bit.
Test question.
Did you get an A for effort though?
I don't think that's gonna save the person's life, but I appreciate.
Hey, I give you my cell phone number. I'll walk you through it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Dwight.
No
All right.
problem.
Well, this has been another episode of Kera Dangerous Talk. Thank you so much, Dwight, for all the tips. You guys, please stay abreast, come up with that family plan with your children and your family, and know what you're going to do in these emergency situations, and always know the best way to handle them. And the best people to call is still 911, and they're going to get the job done for you. Thank you again, Mr. Swayze.
Thank you for having me.